Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I'm going to checkmate David Pakman's video called 65-Year Study, Tax Cuts Don't Lead to Economic Growth. So here we go.
As you can see in this first image, if you're watching on YouTube or on Free Speech TV or on our TV stations with us right now, in 1990, George H.W. Bush raised taxes and GDP growth increased drastically over the next 5 years. In 1993, Bill Clinton further raised the top marginal tax rate, and GDP growth again increased over the next 5 years. In 2001, George W. Bush cut taxes, and we saw a small rise, small dip, small rise, small dip in GDP growth rates. When George W. Bush in 2003 cut tax rates even more, GDP growth tanked, plummeted to a low that we hadn't seen in a long time. GDP growth hit almost zero. This was the beginning of the Great Recession. Now, this isn't evidence that cutting taxes helps GDP growth or that raising taxes hurts GDP growth, but it does allow us to deduce that tax cuts don't, in a sort of vacuum, in a general sense, help economic growth. And there are, of course, many, many factors in an economy that impact GDP. But what history shows us, and it follows basic logic, is that cutting taxes is not nearly a surefire way of improving the economy.
Okay, tax cuts may not be a miracle pill for the economy, but they are still important for the economy. An analogy to what I'm saying is, let's say you're in school and want to have a decent GPA. You study only for math and don't do any other studying for any other subject. So as a result, your GPA is a very terrible. This doesn't mean that studying math is not important at all. Rather, there are other factors that we need to care about to improve the GPA. While with taxes, a literature review that was done by economist William McBride that looked at 26 studies on the relationship between taxes and growth. The studies that were looked at controlled for various factors such as government spending, business cycle conditions, and monetary policies. The study found that out of the 26 papers that were looked at, 23 studies found a negative effect, while there are 3 studies found no effect.
This was confirmed by one of the most comprehensive studies that we've had on whether tax cuts promote economic growth. A 65-year study was conducted by the Congressional Research Service, which is a nonpartisan government office, published about 5 years ago. Over 65 years, the study found that top tax rates are not associated with saving, investment, or productivity growth. And the study found that cutting capital gains taxes and top marginal tax rates leads to more wealth inequality.
A study called Marginal Tax Rates and U.S. Growth, Flaws in the 2012 CRS Study. It looked at the study that's David's citing and pointed out the flaws in the research paper. The problem in the research paper are that it has a year-to-year look at tax changes instead of doing a 3 to 5 year look at the tax changes. The problem with doing the year-to-year look is that it takes time to impact the economy, so doing a 3 to 5 year look would be better because it would give the economy time to experience the effects. Another problem with the study is that it lacks important variables such as a monetary policy. I would recommend you to read the response paper for more information. Also, there are newer studies that looked into the effects of tax cuts on investments and productivity. This study from the University of Chicago found that the 2017 tax cuts increased domestic investments by roughly 20%, while this National Bureau of Economic Research paper found that the corporate tax cuts increased productivity through things like R&D. While on the inequality claims, so what? What if it increased inequality? Since it is the richest own money, as long as the money came from voluntary matters, I don't care about inequality.
And that's obvious. Why wouldn't that be the case? When rich people are given tax breaks, they mostly pocket the money because they don't need the money. The money doesn't trickle down and get spread through the economy in this way that a lot of right-wingers, supply-siders like to tell us. In the 1950s, when the top marginal tax rate was above 90%, both real GDP and real per capita GDP were growing twice as fast as they are today, when the top marginal tax rate was 35, or rather is 35%. Since 1945, the average tax rate paid by the top tenth of 1% of the wealthiest people has fallen from 50 to 25%. And during that time, their share of income, their portion of all income earned in the United States, rose almost 3 times, from just over 4% to just over 12%. This means what? When you cut rich people's taxes, not only do they pay less in taxes, they're able to start earning much more, and wealth inequality gets even worse. This next image shows the tax rates of the top 0.1% and 0.01%. They decreased drastically from 1945 to 2009. And compare that to this next image of how their share of total income changed. Hint, it went up significantly. By the way,
First off, trickle-down economics is a strawman of free markets. I would recommend you to read this book by Thomas Sowell on trickle-down economics. Also, rich people would be investing their money, and with the extra money, it would go through things like stocks, or if the money was simply going to their bank accounts, then the banks would be lending that money out through things that would help the economy, such as business loans. While on the 1950s taxes, the Tax Foundation found that the effective tax rate in the 1950s was 42%, and in 2014 being 36.6%. So basically almost a 60% decline. While on the rich income shares, this study from two tax experts debunked that figure by pointing out that if you include taxes and transfers to the figure, the stats are significantly lower, to be below 4%. This is the end of the video. Thank you for watching, and please donate to my Patreon so I can make more videos and have your video requests checkmated. And thanks for watching, and have a nice day.